sheriff is under fire for this particular case. Will, can you pull up the article for me, please, from NBC 6 News out of Miami? Because um, there was a triple slaying. A man who had been separated from his wife, who had 2 protective orders sworn out against him, showed up unannounced to her home, shot and killed her father. She fled the house, ran to a neighbor's house. Her husband pursued her, shot and killed the neighbor, shot and killed her too. All of this witnessed by the couple's 4-year-old daughter. And as I mentioned, the wife had 2 protective orders out against her husband. And what she had reported in these protective orders included things like, at least for a year, her husband had been threatening her life openly, right? He had been snorting Adderall all night long, staying up all night, and making random threats about killing her and killing their child. She decided that she had had enough. She filed for divorce, and he continued to threaten her. Now, both the husband and the wife, I don't know if they had left the army together. They were both serving in the U.S. Army at some point. I think the husband had been discharged and was working a very lucrative IT job. I think what I heard is that he was making like $187,000 a year, doing very well. Too bad he was a fucking abusive piece of shit. He had drug abuse issues with the Adderall and had been threatening the wife and threatening the life of the daughter. And in spite the fact that the wife had called Broward County sheriffs and told them on one occasion that she found a tracking device that she could prove was purchased and placed on her vehicle by her husband. She reported this to the police. They did nothing. Also, she reported a second incident to police that she found what she believed was some sort of murder kit. It was a bag with zip ties and all the usual, I'm about to kidnap you and kill you accoutrements. And she also reported this to the Broward County Sheriff's Department, and they did fuck all about it. Mind you, she had 2 protective orders. The first one she swore out and retracted because I think they were trying to work on a custody thing. But because the husband had become so excessive with his threats, I think within 2 months of rescinding the first one, she had sworn out another one and included these additional details in it. And in spite of her husband violating some terms very pertinent to the protective order, the sheriff's department did nothing. And as a result, there was a triple homicide. So I want us to take a look at the package. Will, let us cue up the package coming from, I believe this is NBC 6 out of South Florida. Let's take a listen.
After detectives say this man murdered 3 people in front of his 4-year-old daughter Sunday in Tamarack. Broward County Sheriff says he suspended 4 deputies, 1 lieutenant, and 2 sergeants after an internal affairs investigation into possible shortcomings in the killings and the events that led up to it. The arrest report says the 4-year-old told detectives she was sitting on the couch in her living room Sunday when her dad, Nathan Gingles, shot her grandpa, David Ponzer. Detectives asked the child if her dad said anything. She says her father told her grandfather, quote, bye-bye. The report goes on to say the little girl told detectives she then watched her father chase her mother, Mary Gingles, in the street. The 4-year-old said her mom was screaming for help and banged on several neighbors' doors. In the report, the child told detectives her mom ran into a neighbor's home and her dad shot her mother, quote, 100 times. Detectives say Gingles also shot the neighbor, Andrew Farron. Court records show Mary filed 2 restraining orders and made several phone calls to BSO. Mary's uncle, Frank Ponzer, told NBC6 the sheriff's office should have done more.
A complete nightmare and disbelief this could have happened with all the police reports that were in place.
It's just bull work by other officers. So to the public, to the community, to those mothers and women out there who think that we're going to drop the ball and this is a consistent pattern, know this. When we rectify this situation, I'm going to send the fear of God amongst this entire agency to make damn sure we don't do this again. This death is on my watch. I'm the sheriff of this county. I'm responsible.
Kids, I know there was a lot of tough talk there from Sheriff so and so. I do not know that nigga's name. Do not care to. Do y'all believe him? I don't. I don't. Why would the behavior change from the police officers, from the sheriff's deputies? Why would they all of a sudden now take seriously the complaints of domestic violence victims? Because the sheriff said so, because he about to put the fear of God in them, because a handful of deputies have been disciplined because they did not take seriously the threats and the violations committed by Nathan Gingles, who ended up killing 3, including his wife, who had the sworn protective order, killed her father, killed one of her neighbors, all in front of his 4-year-old. The police do not take seriously domestic violence. They're not about to start simply because a triple murder occurred. Because this happens all the time, okay? Like, this isn't new. There's a reason why beat cops, right, hate, like, I'm talking about the cops that answer 911 calls, right? They hate going to domestic violence calls. They don't want to go. They refuse. I won't say they refuse, but they don't go. They do not want to go because, number one, domestic violence calls can be dangerous, i.e. men can be dangerous. Sure, I'm sure some women wild out from time to time. You know, I'm not really seeing too many wives due to triple homicides for violating the protective order. I'm not saying never, but not all that frequently. And for contextual sake, this incident with the triple homicide happened February 18th, thereabouts. Within the previous 2 weeks in February in South Florida alone, I saw at least 3 or 4 other domestic violence homicides in which the male partner murdered the woman partner. Okay, so this right here is not isolated. The only difference is that other folks, so-called other innocent bystanders, were also themselves a part of the rampaging husband's explosion of violence. And what do I tell you guys all the time? Like, it is perfectly acceptable for usually an abusive male to have multiple victims, right? Either multiple partners that they have abused, or when the time finally comes that this man has been driven to these extreme actions. I say all that laden with dripping heavy with sarcasm because ain't nobody pushing these motherfuckers. These motherfuckers can go check themselves into the goddamn psychiatric hospital, get some goddamn help. But no, they'd rather go shoot their wife, right? That's what they want to do. So that's why they go do that, right? The police don't take this as a serious incident until it's time for them to, right? And I also think part of the reason that police don't like to take domestic violence calls all that seriously is because chances are the cop themselves are going home and doing the exact same thing to their own partners, right? In fact, part of the reason why, especially women, I know men who are survivors of domestic violence, I know the men who are being battered definitely don't like to call the police, right? Because I know they're going to get heckled and ridiculed and, oh man, that's just a little woman, you can't blah blah blah. You know, I do have empathy for male victims of domestic violence, but we're talking about the women victims here, and it's the women victims who are overwhelmingly the murder victims of domestic violence perpetrators. And part of the reason why the cops don't like to go to DV calls is because they usually end up seeing themselves, right? Or they'll tell the man, why don't you go calm down? Why don't you go? Can you sleep somewhere else tonight? Yeah, go sleep somewhere else, man. And they'll try to maybe de-escalate the situation to the point of maybe discouraging the woman from pursuing charges or filing anything additional. You know, he kind of had a bad day. He's gonna go sleep at his buddy's house tonight. You know, why don't you guys sleep it off and we'll, think about it in the morning, blah, 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 blah. All these different reasons why not to intervene, right? And usually the lack of intervention allows for more incidents to escalate in the future, right? And tragically, sometimes we could end up with a scenario like this. But I'm not convinced by Mr. Black Sheriff in Broward County. Black cop, you seem very unconvincing, black cop. If you don't strike no fear in me as a viewer. I doubt that your deputies fear you at all, right? And I want to look in a bit more to how severely or not some of these deputies were disciplined as a result of this. Oh, and by the way, hold on. The morning that Nathan Gingles decided to kill 3 people in front of his 4-year-old, the police had actually set up a perimeter in the neighborhood, in the Tamarack neighborhood down there. And guess what? Mr. Gingles and his daughter were able to somehow escape the perimeter. They did not apprehend him on the scene. No. He was apprehended at a Walmart a distance and a time later. So that goes to show you how on top of things Broward County Sheriff's deputies was at the scene of a triple homicide. They let the alleged murder suspect meander out of the neighborhood with a 4-year-old, no less. Cops ain't shit out here.